Hey y'all, what is going on? You are listening to Dr. Mandy Unedited. Still working on that jingle. Anyway, I'm Dr. Mandy Crew. I'm a professional academic editor and researcher, and I want to help you research good. So if you think that you need some help, why don't you continue listening? Last week we talked about, part two of our literature review series. So I did it in two parts. First part is talking about how to plan, collect papers, and outline your literature review. And then the second part was how to write your literature review in terms of how to synthesize and how to critically analyze material so that you can write it in your review of literature section. So if you think that would be kind of helpful, go back and check that out. I also have on my website a how to write a literature review in 90 days guide. It's on the media page of my website at www.drmandyedits.com. So go and check some of those things out if you haven't yet. Today, I'm going to talk a little bit about how I chose my research topic. And this is not necessarily like how I looked at the gaps and I came to this marvelous research conclusion. This is more so just, my thought process behind getting there. So, as you know by now, I used to be a former teacher and I also used to live in the US. I currently live in the UK, and all of those details are important for the story that is about to be told. So, there I was in North Carolina being a teacher, starting my PhD program, and the same advice that I gave you was given upon me, where somebody, and that somebody is definitely my mom, who is also a very fabulous researcher. She said unto me, "Hey, you should start writing your coursework on whatever, topic that you think you might want to study." So the whole purpose of me really getting up the guts to deep dive into the PhD program was because I had just been promoted to be the assistant director of this school, and I found a lot of the kids that were enrolling in the school were neurodivergent, and I really just saw a lot of, like the fear and the trauma that they've had throughout their educational journey. And it really resonated with me because, like I said, I have ADHD, but I didn't know it when I was a kid. But I really struggled with education, and I saw like a lot of like the fear and the struggles that they had were similar to my own. And so, you sometimes look at someone else and say, like, oh, I don't want them to have to go through the things that I've gone through. There has to be a better way. And so I kind of knew early on, goal, with my PhD was really to start researching ways to educate neurodiverse minds, and then kind of hopefully in like the wild future make that a standard of learning that is accessible. So with my PhD program, I started to think about digital technology. At first, I wanted to do something, yeah, kind of like digital tools that could help educate neurodiverse kids, kind of like what I talk about now when I mention all the tools and technological things for, how to do research more effectively. That's basically how I kind of wanted to approach my research topic initially. And so, yeah, I did spend a lot of my coursework writing on digital tools in the classroom and digital tools for neurodiverse students and all that good stuff. But when it came down to it, again, I was talking to my mother, and she kind of also pointed out, like, hey, but now is like a really cool time to be able to do some super unique topics. And what she meant by that is like we just went through like COVID, right? So now, for the first time ever, people are getting to research about COVID as it's kind of like happening and as it's developing. So she really encouraged me to think of something like super unique. And again, I kind of had like that digital technology mindset. But in a later conversation, I was talking to my mom about some of the kids who I used to tutor after school. I used to be a music teacher and an art teacher, as well as just being like, a regular kind of school educator. And I got to teach kids from like all over the county this way. But one of the things I thought was really interesting is that I had these kids who were going to a homeschool co-op, but they were taking these really advanced classes. And what was impressive is that whenever I was doing like my art class while we were painting, they would tell me in detail about all the things that they've been learning in this course that they're taking. And these kids were like quite young as well. So I was just really impressed with hearing that there was homeschooling entity out there that had a really sophisticated curriculum and a really sophisticated way of learning. Not at all discounting homeschooling in any way, shape, or form. I think like homeschooling is like a really great tool for a lot of people. I just think at the time I was kind of like ignorant to how many different facets of homeschooling there was and what was out there and what people were doing to bring like quality education to their kids. Once I mentioned this idea to my mom about these homeschool co-op kids, like she really thought it was interesting. And again, it kind of goes along with like a lot of homeschooling programs have come out of COVID like never before. And so this is like a really unique opportunity to kind of study this. And then of course, because I have my PhD in educational leadership, there had to be like some sort of leadership aspect to it. So one of the things I was already kind of looking into was collaborative leadership because that's something that I kind of did at my school that I thought, was really effective for the type of kids that I was teaching. But I also found that as like a really interesting element in these like homeschool co-ops because a lot of times the kids in these homeschool co-ops are being taught by parents or, former educators or subject matter experts. And not only that, but like the leaders of these groups have to kind of collaborate with the community to really build an effective educational program. So, for example, these homeschool co-ops are held maybe in like recreational centers or parks where you have to collaborate with members of the community. And so that's where I kind of came to the topic of collaborative leaders experiences of success in homeschool co-ops. And I think like look, if I think it was like the best thing that I could have done because not only did I learn so much good stuff in how to like educate kids in an accessible way, but I also learned a lot about what parents are willing to go through and what the community is willing to go through to make sure that we are bringing up really well-rounded students. And you may be saying to yourself, well, Mandy, you don't research in education anymore. Yeah, that's true. Partway through my PhD program, I did move to the UK and then I was no longer an educator, which, meant that I had to kind of like rethink a lot of aspects of my life and where I was going in this pathway of wanting to be a researcher and wanting to develop, like accessible education for neurodiverse students. But even though I don't think that I will be like a classroom educator again, I don't think that my work is done on that topic. But one of the things that I did find really interesting from my research that I do carry on into my other research areas in my everyday life is how people perceive success. What I did for my research was I did like interviews, I did a kind of like a journal prompt, and then I did artifacts, which really helped me understand every leader who was a participant in my study. It really helped me understand how they viewed success. And so for some of them, it was simply their artifact was things that their students had given them over the years, and that was success to them. For others, it was like they had the money to make a professional video about their education program, and that was success to them. So now that I'm in the professional research world, I think of that quite often because when you're choosing data collection methods, you want to be really intentional about, what you pick because you really want like the best research result. And so sometimes that means you kind of have to think a little like psychologically. There wasn't necessarily, I think like the biggest bit that I got and the point of success of those leaders was from the artifacts, which wasn't something that was words, it was just an object. And that's really helped me think creatively now that I work with like different research groups and stuff. And then sometimes those research groups have actually asked me my opinions on those matters in terms of like data collection and like how to analyze and interpret those things because they have actually read my dissertation. That's why you need to get your dissertation edited, y'all, because all of my bosses have read my dissertation. And yeah, they always bring up that artifact thing and like the findings and the way I analyze that. And they use that as kind of a way to ask me, how can we find meaningful insights to the research that we are doing? Next week, we're going to be talking about how you can choose your dissertation topics. So, we're going to start from just a basic idea and how to get it really specified and focused to whatever you want to study. If you need some help in your dissertation life, please let me know. You can reach out to me through www.drmandyedits.com, or you can email me at mandykf@gmail.com. So that's mandiekf@gmail.com. If you would just like to see what else is going on in my life or whatever silly memes that I'm coming up with, you could check out my social media that is linked in the description below. But other than that, go write a few paragraphs. Don't bang your head against the wall because you'll get brain damage. And I'll talk to y'all later. Bye!